in this Terraform folder, I have a module for the EC2 instances. I'm going to start with provider.tf. This is the file that is used to declare and configure providers that Terraform will use to provision resources. The terraform.tf vars file is used to store input variables and their values for Terraform configuration. And the variables.tf files is used to define input variables. And you can see these 4 variables will be using the values from this file here. And I have additional variables, including instance count with a default of 2, instance type T2 micro, and 2 availability zones, US West 2A and US West 2B. And the outputs.tf file is used to define output values that are generated as a result of provisioning infrastructure. Moving on to main.tf, I have a VPC, 2 public subnets. They have different stutter block and different availability zones specified. An internet gateway, a public route table with the internet gateway and the 2 public subnets associated with it. A public security group that allows SSH and HTTP in from everywhere and allow all the outbound traffic. And then here I generate a local SSH key pair, getting the key pair and create the AWS key from the local key pair. And then here it is getting the most recent AMI from 1.23.04. And this is basically referring to the module for the EC2 instances. And you can see that if it starts from var, then it is using the variable from the variables.tf file. And here I have declared a local variable and is getting the public DNS, so like the DNS from the EC2 instances. And then here it is the Ansible inventory file. So I also have like vars for new user, bond, and new user group sudo. These 2 will be used in the Ansible playbook file, which I'll show later. And the Ansible configuration file, I added these 2. So basically it allows the temporary files to be created during the playbook execution and enables pipelining of tasks on remote hosts. Now I'm going to show you my module for the EC2 instances. So the variables.tf inside my module, you'll see that they are like the same variables that I have here. And basically they are getting the values from what I get from this part, this main.tf. And except that I have an additional one here, called name tag. So this will be the name for the EC2 instances. Both of the EC2 instances will have the same name called public EC2 instance. Now, the main.tf inside my module, both EC2 instances are going to have the same configuration, except that they will be using a different subnet and a different availability zone. So this one basically says if the first EC2 instance will be using the first public subnets, and the second will be using the second public subnets. And it's the same for the availability zone. And so the availability zones was declared in a list. So it will just basically move through it and do it accordingly. And then the security group for both instances will be the same. Now the output.tf is really simple. Basically the value is just getting the value from here, like what the result of this provisioning. Now I'm going to go over my Ansible playbook YAML file. First, I create a new regular user called bond with sudo privilege. So the new user and new user group here, these are what I defined earlier in my host.yaml file, which is here. So it will create a new user called bond and it will be added to the sudo group. And then next I add the bond user to the sudo rs file and make sure there is no password required when I do the sudo command using the bond user. And then next I have installation of bond runtime, and that happens in the bond user environment. So before I run the curl command to install bond runtime, I have to install unzip package. And then once it is installed, then I can install bond runtime in my bond user environment using become user bond command. And then after that, I have to install Caddy web server, and that will happen in the Ubuntu user. So in this case, I don't have become user. So I only have become in order to install all the packages that is needed to install Caddy. And then next, I have transferred Caddy file to the EC2 instances, and then I have to restart Caddy servers. So it is transferring from my local machine to the EC2 instance where /etc/caddy originally has a Caddy file. So I have to force it to replace it, and then after it is replaced, I restart the Caddy servers. Next, I transfer application and service files to the EC2 instances and run the files. So this is the same. I'm transferring from my local machine to the EC2 instance, and that's where all the applications files will be. It will be in the home /bun directory. And then I change the ownership of the transfer files to bun user to make sure that bun user has the required privileges to the application files. And then I install the dependencies that is needed for the application to run successfully. And so I have to cd into the application folder and then do the bun install command to install the dependencies. And then next, I have to transfer the service files from my local machine to where the service file has to be. And then I will need to become the root user in order to do the transfer of the service file. And then it's the same when I have to do daemon reload and then also enable and start the service. I have to become the root user in order to do these actions. Now I'll demo that it is working. So now all the resources have been created successfully. And we also see that host.yaml and Ansible configurations file are created. So this is my host.yaml and my Ansible configuration file. And now I'm going to run the Ansible playbook file, but first I'll check if there's any syntax error. And there isn't, so I am going to go ahead and execute it. So it is successfully completed. Now I'm going to SSH into both EC2 instances and make sure the configurations are correct. So I am in my first EC2 instance, and bun runtime is not installed in Ubuntu, which is correct. And I'm going to check that caddy service is running. So I'm also going to show that my caddy file and caddy service is running. Now I am going to change it to my bun user, and the same thing. So bun runtime is installed in bun user environment. And now I am going to make sure that the application files are transferred over. So it seems like everything is transferred over, and I am going to check the service file. So it is this one here. That's our service file. And then I am going to check that the service file is active and running. So it is active and running, and I am going to try to curl the other EC2 instance. So it should be this one. So it's able to curl the other EC2 instance. Okay, now I am also, so now I'm gonna also check that the website is working. This is the website. So it is working, and I am going to check the other. So it's the same. Bun runtime is not installed on Ubuntu, and I'm going to also check the caddy servers. So check the caddy file, make sure the caddy service is also running, and then I am going to change it to the bun user. And bun user has the bun runtime installed, And then I am going to make sure that the application files are all transferred successfully in my second EC2 instance. And then I'm going to check the service file. So this is the service file again. And then I am going to check if the service is running. So it is running. And I'll also try to call the other EC2 instance. So, should be this one. So I'm able to crawl it. And then if I go to the website of my second instance, it should be this one. So it's the same. So it is working. And that's it for the video. Thank you for watching.